Hey everybody, welcome to this week's pod. We're recording this on June 5th, 2022, and it's time to talk about what's happening in our Disney World. We've got Mike from New York with us, who has been mentioned previously on the last 2 weeks of the show, I think, Phil.
Yep.
He was living dangerously in his Disney World with 140 people. Was that right, Mike?
Yeah, about 145 middle school students and grown-ups.
Oh, man. So Mike's come on to join us for the show, talk about the journey of interesting planning, I should say. I don't know if we had to give that a title, Phil. I mean, that's just, to me, that sounds like a happiness and nightmare on a knife's edge throughout the whole time there. But we'll find out. Mike's going to tell his trip report. He's going to give us the down low and maybe give advice for anybody else that's kind of going down with a team or a school or anything else like that. But first, before we get to Mike's story, we're going to find out what everybody's talking about in our Disney World, Phil. What's going on?
Yep. Yeah, so I think one of the big topics that got a lot of discussion, or at least where I was participating in a lot of the discussion, was that Anika Noni Rose, who is the voice of Tiana from Princess and the Frog, was on live with Kelly and Ryan. And when they asked her if they were going to be making a Princess and the Frog attraction in the parks, she said they are making a ride and it will be out in 2024. So for those of you who don't know, Disney had previously announced that they're going to be doing a re-theme of Splash Mountain at both Walt Disney World and Disneyland to be Princess and the Frog theme. So everyone's assuming that this is what she's talking about. Disney hadn't given any time frame before that, but now everyone's like, oh, now it's going to be open in 2024 sometime. So afterwards, Disney did come out and say that they are not ready to share any timelines officially or anything, but they did say at next month's Essence Festival of Culture in New Orleans, which Disney is an official entertainment sponsor, that they will be sharing more information then.
So this is very interesting. This is basically just a rehash of all the old discussions, because you go on www.magic.com where this was kind of being debated. Len Testa's chiming in with some of his timelines that he's kind of thinking about. There's no new information other than people were speculating, they're not doing this anymore. They kind of pushed this out early, but now it's just like, let's just have the old debates again. Is this a good changeover or bad one? Mike, do you have any thoughts or opinions on this one? What are you thinking about Splash?
I mean, we had just done it, so when we were there, we wrote it. It is dated. Like, you feel it. Like, it has that 1960s, 1970s. It felt like, the old school, like Robin Hood and the Baloo and that kind of feel to it. So it's still fun. The drop is still fantastic when you hit that peak and you see the castle and you come down. Probably one of the best views in the park. But the people we were with, the 13, 14-year-olds were kind of like, this is weird. So I think updating is probably necessary. It is aged.
Well, that's an interesting. Oh, go ahead, Phil.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I was going to say that's a good point, though, because a lot of times the debate comes more from the people that don't want it changed, are a lot of old time Disney fans that are saying this is such a classic ride and Disney shouldn't just give in with the times and change something. But to your point, how many 13 and 14-year-old kids even know what Song of the South is or what the Brer Rabbit is and stuff like that? So
they had no
updating it to something more current probably makes sense.
Yeah, I always find it interesting because, like, when you are deep in wherever you find your, Disney news or your culture or your groups of friends, whether it's online on Facebook groups or on our Discord or on a forum somewhere, or just Twitter or just your own personal circle, you get like into it where like you're dealing with other Disney fanatics, right? But the vast majority of people that are going to Disney World are not Disney park fanatics like we are here. And Mike, I think your opinion is awesome because that's just your opinion of it, like you're just a random park guest, right? Because they might be looking at this and be like, all right, this is interesting. I don't really get the reference, but the ride is awesome, right? It's the drop that really matters. Mike, do you like the idea that it's a princess ride? Do you have any opinion that if it's like you're in Frontierland, it's all of a sudden it's going to be 1920 something, Louisiana? Does that matter to you?
It's a bit of an odd pick. I'm not sure what else I would put there. What other ride or theme exists that you could incorporate into Frontierland that Disney has done? But I guess in terms of a water ride, Princess the Frog makes sense because it is, if they can incorporate the lily pads and maybe the scene from the bayou and that music and those characters, it would make sense. I'm not sure if it fits Frontierland, but the water and the essence of the ride would certainly make sense to include and incorporate those characters into it.
I don't think anybody, Phil, ever has said like that a proper retheme of that ride would fit nicely with, Princess Tiana or Princess and the Frog, the movie, right? I mean, have you ever seen anybody like, nah, that's a terrible idea? Like it works,
well,
right?
some people do just because there aren't mountains really in Louisiana and stuff like that. So they're saying the ride vehicle or the shape isn't great, but I think most people are supportive of getting a Tiana Princess and the Frog ride into the parks. They're just not sure if that's the proper one. And that actually was a good transition, Mike. It's like you're a professional at this. And that's what a lot of the discussion was saying, well, how do you fit this into the theme and timeline of Frontierland? Which for people who might not know, the idea with Liberty Square and Frontierland is you travel from east to west, starting at like the Hudson River with the Haunted Mansion, and you go through all the way out to the West Coast with Big Thunder Mountain, and you go from sort of the mid 1700s to about 1880, which is when Big Thunder is. So they're saying, okay, now you're in the middle of it, you're going to have 1920s New Orleans, Louisiana. How does that fit? So what I wanted to go over was some ideas that some of us posters came up with.
What was that, Mike?
I never even knew that it moved from west to east. So if you do that, I guess you could kind of squeeze it in and say this is, Gulf Coast and make your way further west from there.
Hey, Phil, are you going to actually mention the thing that was on WDW Magic's forum, which I thought was an excellent idea, which I actually posted about? Second,
so
that idea? Go ahead.
Well, see, so there were three sort of ideas that got talked about. First was one that I threw up there that Len Testa actually thought could work, was that you basically annex Princess and the Frog Splash Mountain Ride into a New Orleans subland that includes a rethemed Pecos Bill and Pirates, because Pirates is a little bit separate from the rest of Adventureland. And you kind of have like a break where you're leaving Frontierland and you go into New Orleans Square, whereas Frontierland kind of would then continue on. And there's enough room where you can kind of build out the walkways and stuff like that. And you sort of have like this subland that's just for New Orleans. You come out of Frontierland.
So I like the idea. I mean, I like that idea, right? Like you just have this island of like cool, New Orleans type of thing. But I would just incorporate that into Adventureland a little bit, right? You include pirates in there, and now it's just kind of like a Caribbean Gulf Coast type of, I don't know, all kind of together. I kind of dig that because now you're transitioning a little bit more out of the Frontierland, which I think is kind of dated right now. Like there's nobody that's, you can't even play Cowboys.
It's like the same,
anymore,
like when the parks were first built and you had, Davy Crockett on TV and stuff like that. And that was like a big thing for kids to think about, the frontier and stuff like that. So,
yeah, it definitely felt like the most dated part of the park that I visited. It was, like, while it's cool, like the steamboat and that area, it has an older feel to it. It feels like it's from the 60s. It feels like it has that Americana vibe from that time period, and it hasn't caught up to the rest of the park.
No, I'm dead with that. I agree.
Yeah. So another poster, R Socks #1, suggested, and this would be, some of the purists might get up in arms about this, but actually dropping the name Frontierland and Liberty Square and calling the whole area Riverfront Square. And the idea is you would sort of lean into a general Rivers of America theme, which kind of fits because the Haunted Mansion supposedly on the banks of the Hudson River, and you kind of come down and you have sort of those New England sea towns, and then you get into the Mississippi River and that sort of thing. So it's instead of being very specific in the timeline and stuff like that, it's just a bit more general of sort of the Rivers of America.
I'm not down with Rivers of America. Here's why. Like I think the idea is fine, right? It makes sense if you're going to do something like that. No one knows that the Haunted Mansion's on the Hudson River, right? No one knows that, and it's just kind of like the back,
no idea.
Right? And it's just like Dinoland USA, right? It's like no one knows that it's a carnival that was set up across the street from the Institute, and that's how they're trying to attract the money of everybody going to go see the actual dinosaur bones, right? No one knows that backstory because it's written somewhere on like an internet, a website somewhere. So I don't think, in my opinion, a theming of a land needs to be obvious. Like you walk into the land from Fantasyland or from Adventureland, it's like, boom, this is what it's about. It should be obvious. And then if you want more detail, you go further and you explore, you go online, you do whatever it is. But like it should be completely evident in your face.
Yeah. And then the third idea that was posted, and this person, Yensid Law, 1969 actually even did up his own concept art and stuff like that. And it was sort of a similar idea to what I had, was that you create a new New Orleans square that's sort of outside of Frontierland. But what he was saying was you keep that one side of Splash Mountain, Princess and the Frog Mountain, still kind of looks Frontierlandish, but on the other side of the railroad tracks, kind of where a lot of the outside queue is now for Splash Mountain, you build that out into a New Orleans square. And he even had in his concept art, you can build a table service restaurant for Tiana's Place and stuff like that, and really go all in, but you push it back that way onto the other side of the railroad track. So that's the point where you leave Frontierland to go to here. So when you're in the Frontierland side, it doesn't really look New Orleans at all. But when you cross the tracks, it does.
I mean, if Phil, I think you should tweet out that concept art, because just by some, I guess, random person on the internet, I mean, they're somehow, not somehow, there's some kind of professional artist or a very good amateur artist. It's a beautiful drawing.
So I don't know. I think it's just an interesting idea. And we know from what Len Test has said on his podcast that the Imagineers are struggling with this. He's saying, how do they just break the timeline? He was saying they're even contemplating setting the new ride in the 1880s, like before Tiana was alive.
That would be silly.
Like that would be so weird. So they're kind of struggling the proper way to do it. So I don't know. It's just created good armchair Imagineering and internet chatter, and hopefully they come up with a good idea. I think that's one of the things people got concerned with, just the speed at which Disney does things. Will 2024 enable them to build a ride that's worthy of it, or is it going to be a cheap overlay? From what we understand, they're doing a lot of the animatronics and sets sort of off-site, and they'll be able to kind of plug them in.
We'll see.
But we'll have to see.
I think they can. It depends on what they're doing with the overlay, right? Are they going to take the time to like repair things, upgrade some of the track systems and stuff like that? Are they going to go like a full gut mode, or are they just kind of painting new sets and putting the new animatronics and that's it? Depends on what they're going to do.
Kind of like they did with the Frozen ride. They just switched out the characters, but the ride and the track and the backwards fall is all identical to the ride that used to be there.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to redo the track no matter what. I think that's in there, but they might upgrade the rails or the braking systems or the conveyance systems or that type of thing. Like other than just let's do there and do some normal maintenance type of stuff that they do on an annual basis. Here's a random question, because I've got my little getaway trip in 40-ish days now. Where are my Magic Band Pluses? Mike, did you see anybody walking around with a Magic Band Plus when you were down there, by any chance? Anybody waving their hands in front of gold statues and weird things happening?
We saw lots of Magic Bands, but I didn't see anybody do anything with the gold statues. And we took pictures with several of them, and we didn't really see anybody interacting with them. Okay,
so in case you didn't, Mike, do you know about the Magic Band Pluses that they're going to try selling in sometime?
I have heard about it. They're supposed to be kind of like like the magic wand at Universal with the Harry Potter land. Like you do stuff and it makes things interact and change. When we gone several years ago with Phil, we had they had something like that with the Phineas and Ferb interaction. You could do it through some of the lands in Epcot. Mm-hmm. It wasn't great. It didn't always work, and the kids weren't really into it. Yeah. I don't know I'm not sure how different it will be or what will happen as part of the interaction.
We don't know either. No one knows, other than there were some like Instagram videos or Twitter videos of somebody waving their hands in front of Mickey, and Mickey like responds back to you.
They did a sample with some media folks that were in, I think around the time the Guardians opened for the media previews, and they got to use them with the statues. And they say they're going to somehow give you bounty hunter tasks when you're in Galaxy's Edge. They'll sort of interact when you're in the right area, and you have to use your phone and stuff like that. I don't know. I think people are a little like, the concept is cool, but we haven't really seen enough of what they're actually going to do to really impress people. So
we'll see.
Still a wait.
They're supposed to come out in June. That's my point, right? And I'm checking like the news every day just so I can buy them, so I get them in time for my trip in mid-July. So we'll see. I don't know. I haven't heard anything, but Phil, have you seen anything on the interwebs that I might have missed?
No, nothing new since then. I think every now and then people ask, and they dropped for that. They were accidentally out in the world of Disney for like 5 minutes, and then they got pulled. But
there hasn't been any announcements.
There hasn't been anything else about them. So.
All right, so as we get on, with just a little quick reminder of the DCI. It's bumped up at 0.12.
Yeah, not
points.
Much of a movement this week.
So everything's roughly at 85.66%. But then the reason why we have Mike on. Mike's going to tell us a little bit about his trip down to Florida with 140 people. I didn't know you could do 140 people in a single trip, so that's the logistics boggles my mind. But maybe we should have done this at the top of the show. Mike, tell us who you are, because obviously you know Phil, and I'm going to kind of step away, and you guys can chat about what's going on. So who are you, Mike? Introduce us to introduce yourself to the audience, and what's your ties to your fervor for Disney and all that other good stuff.
Sure. So Phil and I actually live about 30 minutes away from each other, and we met through our spouses. Our wives were in a mom's group together when our oldest kids were very young, and they started hanging out, and we started getting the kids to the play dates, and then the dad started joining, and then we just kind of came together, and we've grown to be good friends, and we went with Phil and his family and his in-laws to Disney. Which he talked about a little bit in a previous podcast. We were the other group that he had his lessons learned.
Yep.
In terms of trying to navigate a park with 14 people, which so trying to do with 147 is actually the official count, was almost insane.
Insane? It's not flat out insane.
I will say so. So we'll start with why we went. So my older daughter is 14. She's in middle school. She's in 8th grade. And she went with her school's music program. And they went to do music workshops at the Disney park. So she was in 2 groups: Rock Ensemble, where they did a track recording, and she's also in the Symphonic Winds, and they did a track recording there as well. And that was the highlight of her trip, doing that interaction, where they actually went to the studio and they scored a piece of music with their band in the actual studio. They scored a piece from Tangled with the movie playing in the background with the music director from the kids, and the kids are sitting there in the studio, and they recorded the piece of music with the music performing with the video rolling in the background. She said that blew her mind. She's like, that was absolutely amazing. So she had a blast, and that was the reason why I went. And they did some other workshops and some other concerts and stuff outside the park. So my wife was a chaperone, and my son and I went as tag-alongs.
Okay.
The pricing was fantastic. We got super discounted rates. Flights and food were included, and we'll talk about all that crazy stuff.
Well, let me stop you right there. So you being a tag-along, what is your connection or personal, desire, connection with like the Disney parks? It's just like a cool thing that you go see, and that's kind of it, and you have some fun. Do you have like nostalgia? Do you have like super fandom somewhere? Like, because Phil mentioned that you came back and he said you think you have the bug or something along those lines.
A little bit.
So where were you before this trip in terms with Disney? For context,
before it was kind of like I'm not a super huge theme park fan to begin with. I'm not, parks and rides and stuff. It's okay. It's not my super cup of tea. My kids really love it. My wife loves it. She loves roller coasters. My daughter loves roller coasters. They want to go anything that goes fast and steep and down a hill. They're all for it. But I thought this was a good opportunity to try it again. So last time we went, my younger son, who we went with, he was 2. He's now going to be 11. So just think about the span of time was what has changed those parks. At the time we went, Seven Dwarfs Mine Train was being built. So that's how long ago we were there. We actually had to go to a ride and get the paper fast pass from the machine at the ride at the park open to try and get your fast pass. So that's how long ago we were there. So I almost kind of see this as going again really for the first time because we've been so long. Galaxy's Edge didn't exist. Toy Story didn't exist. A lot of things at Epcot didn't exist. So Avatar didn't exist at Animal Kingdom. So many things have changed since we went. I saw it. This would be a good opportunity to go try it. And the cost was, like I said, we couldn't beat it. It was ridiculously discounted for the school program that we just couldn't really pass up the opportunity to go. So in terms of getting there, it took 2 flights with about 60 kids per flight or so. So we left out of Newark International Airport, which is in New Jersey. First flight took off, second flight took off. We reconnected back at the airport, had 3 coach charter buses to pick us up with all their stuff, all our luggage, and all of the instruments. Ooh, I give a lot of props to our middle school and our district's music director who coordinated this entire thing. The guy is a rock star, the way he managed this. So we took our flights, got off okay, no problems, got there, got in the bus. It just takes time to move that many people. You got to check bags, you got to pick up bags, and get to the bus. So it's an all-day event to get down there.
So at this point, you're just told where to show up, when to show up, and that's it at this point,
pretty much.
Okay.
So before we left, we got about 2 weeks beforehand, we were told where we were staying. Like, oh, you're staying at Coronado Springs. I'm like, oh, great, never been there. Sounds like a nice place. You know, everything was booked through the school, and the school booked it through a travel agency that does things specifically for schools and universities and bands and stuff like that. You know, large marching bands and stuff like that. So they do this kind of thing. So there were some issues with that as well. So we got down there, got to Coronado. It was nice. We stayed in the villas, which we pull up to the tower. I'm like, oh, really nice. And then they like, oh, wait, the buses pull away. And we drive all the way around the property to the backside.
Yep.
And they drop us off at the villas. And we're like, well, how are we supposed to go back over to where the food is? You got to walk. I'm like, oh.
That's a long walk. Yeah.
Yeah. That's probably one of the things they don't show you in the brochure when they, you know, when they highlight the hotel. It's like, oh, here's the tower and it's so nice and it's on the lake. And then here are the places all the way back here where, you know, it's a 9-minute walk and, you know, in humidity and 85-degree heat at 9 o'clock in the morning from your hotel room to go get breakfast. But they had the kids were broken down into 4 students per room, 2 chaperones would share a room unless you had other circumstances like us. So my wife and I and my son stayed in a room together since we were traveling with them, and then my daughter and her 3 classmates were in a room around the hall. So yeah, 147 kids, rooms, card keys, getting people checked in, getting to the, you know, getting the food. Basically, we ate every day in.
Okay, well let's set the trip up then here. So, how many nights are you down on property?
4 nights, 5 days. So we left on a Tuesday, and we came back on a Saturday. So it was a tight trip. It was a lot of activity in a short amount of time.
Okay, so you get there your first day. You're checking in. You're getting organized. It's the logistics of getting everybody there. I'm assuming you have chaperones are saying, "Yep, everybody's in this room, this room, this room." Everybody's like, "Okay, we didn't lose anybody. We didn't lose any luggage. We're good to go." What time did you land, and what time were you now in your room and you had nothing left to do to settle in?
So I'm trying to think. So we left. We were at the school at 6:30 in the morning to meet the buses. By the time we got into the rooms and settled, I'd say it was about 5 p.m.
Okay, so full day already. Are you doing anything else for that day? Is it just
no? That's just there. We're just at the resort. So then it's dinner, free time, pool time. They go. It was called the Dig, which is the big pool at Coronado. The kids go there after dinner, and then it's study hour from 8 to 9 every night. From 9 to 10 every night is study hour, and then 10 o'clock is lights out.
Okay.
So that's pretty much the routine every night. 9 to 10 is study hour, lights out at 10. Everybody kind of has to be back at the resort by 6-ish.
Okay, so now you have park tickets. You've got 1 million people with you. So it's like the next day, like a park day where you're...
Next day is, it's a split day. So they go to perform at a park in downtown Orlando.
Okay.
Actually, I can't remember the name of it. Phil was there. What was the name of it?
Oh, it was Lake Eola.
Lake Eola. So there's a big amphitheater there, and the kids performed there. In the morning, all the different musical groups performed, and we finished it there about 1 o'clock, and then we went to Animal Kingdom.
Okay, so you just bus from the show to right to the parks? No, like
right. So we had our charter coach buses picked us up, brought us right to Animal Kingdom. We get to the park, we go in. But before that, the night before, I knew a little bit about some stuff. Like take a step back for a second. I had zero plan.
Yep.
I had nothing planned out. I had no dining room reservations. I had no fast passes. I had no Genie Plus. I had nothing.
It's a nightmare, Phil.
I was going to completely wing it every day. So people were like, oh my gosh, like no plan. Like I didn't have a single dining reservation anywhere because I didn't know what parks we were going to until like the last minute because we didn't get the information until maybe 3 to 4 days before we departed actually what parks and what the actual itinerary schedule was.
So when you get to the parks, are you sticking together as large groups or are you guys just breaking up, kind of doing whatever you do to get back here before
Yeah, it was kind of like that. Everybody kind of just scattered. Like the chaperone took their 4 kids and went and do whatever you want. Be back here at the park entrance at like 5:45 to make our way back to the buses at 6.
Okay. So
we got there about 1:30ish.
Okay.
And also too, for the time of year, we're there early mid-May. It should be like 85ish. It's like 97, 98. So it's much hotter than it should be for that time of year too. So that takes, so we got I think
you're at the hottest park too.
Yeah, so I think, like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the real fields were like 105, 106 in the middle of the day. So it was really hot. And a lot of kids who were unprepared, unfortunately. Unfortunately, that was a chaperone issue, not me. I just had to worry about my one kid. And,
yep.
My wife had issues with her kids, like who showed up, they got off the bus, like, where's your bag? I don't have one. Where's your water? I don't have one. Do you have any money?
Boy.
I got $20 for the week. I'm like,
Woo.
so
That's like
Yeah,
2
so-
bottles of water.
she could tell you a whole adventure about her side of chaperoning if you want to learn on it, what it's like to chaperone, 4 kids out of 140 through a massive theme park, for 7 hours straight.
So let's talk about. So it was you and your son that was going through. Was there just you, your son, and your wife? Because I know your daughter had a bunch of friends. Did she just go off on her own and do her thing? How'd you guys do it?
My wife had the 4 kids. My daughter and the other 3, she was their official chaperone. So they had to stick with them and
Okay.
do their thing. So him and I split off a little bit, and we did catch up and do some things together. So, but we got there, and like, I opened up the app. I'm like, let's see what the wait times are and stuff. And we just kind of went by that. Like, where are we starting? All right, we're in Dino Land. So we went to Dinosaur Land first. We did the ride there. There was like a 15-minute wait. We did that.
Was that Dinosaur, the actual dark ride? Or
Yeah.
I'm assuming?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it was actually pretty cool. I'd never done that before. So that was neat.
I just wanted a picture of Mike on Triceratops spin, Phil. I just thought that would have been hilarious.
That's the only ride they could get on. They did that 5 times.
Where do we go from there? So from there, we my son, he's not a big thrill seeker, so him and I are kind of the same boat. We're kind of like more of the we like more of the tame stuff. He's not a big roller coaster kid.
Mhm.
So we went from there. We walked through. We met up with my wife and the girls, and we did the river rapids. And that
Okay.
was great.
Kali River Rapids.
And we got soaked, which is
Excellent.
fantastic because
Yep.
it was so hot.
Yeah, when it feels 107, that's a perfect ride.
That was a good ride. Then we stopped. We got our Mickey Mouse, or Mickey ice creams for everybody.
Excellent.
And then we went to go see Lion King. So the girls went off again. Owen and I went to see the Lion King show, which was inside and air conditioned. Was fantastic. So we were a little wet. We went and sat in there. It was cold. It was like perfect. I was like, great. 35 minutes to take a break. And we had one of those magical Disney moments. This is what Disney does, right? Like we love Disney. We love watching Disney movies. There's always, somebody cutting onions or dust in your eye when there's,
Of course.
watching stuff with the kids. So we're sitting there watching Lion King, and all the pieces of the stage start coming out, and then the elephant and the giraffe come out, and my son reaches over, holds my hand, and looks up at me with these big eyes, like, "Wow, this is awesome." I'm like, "Come on." I'm like, like, this is how they get you. This is this is why.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, of course.
But which was a spectacular show. We've actually, even though we live in New York, he has not seen the Lion King Broadway show, so this was kind of new for him. So he really loved that. He thought it was fantastic. Then from there, we made our way over to Avatar,
Right.
to go there. So I'm going to backtrack a little bit and just talk a little bit about the lightning lanes. So we had some issues connecting tickets. I couldn't get his ticket to link to my account. So I actually had to call the customer service number. They had to force it to push it through. One of the issues we have when you go with a large group is that when you have a group booking, people aren't connected to you. Like, he was connected to a reservation with like 9 other kids that were not related to us.
Yeah.
Because that's how his ticket was processed. So his ticket, my wife's ticket, my daughter's ticket, and the other 3 kids that she was chaperoning, all our tickets were under different confirmation codes. So trying to coordinate that and get stuff linked was, so that we figured that out the night before. So I was able to purchase Lightning for Avatar.
Okay.
So we did that. Amazing. Owen had a blast. He bought a Banshee at the gift shop. He's like, I have to have one of these things.
Very nice. So let's back up. So you are not a theme park person, but you just went on probably the marquee ride of all of Walt Disney World until Rise of the Resistance showed up a year and a half ago. What did you think of that experience, just from, the interaction and the immersion, et cetera, et cetera?
I mean, I thought the land itself was amazing. Unfortunately, I was not able to ride it. I'm not a small gentleman, so I was not able to get in. They were not able to close the harness. So,
man,
that didn't work. So my son got to fly it solo. He said it was the most amazing thing he ever did. So, incentive for me to keep working hard to get down there and do it again. But the upside was they threw us two Genie Plus Lightning lanes, good for any time at any park except for the pay for rides.
Oh, very cool.
So
little pixie dust there.
Little pixie dust. So he got 2, I got 2, and those came in very helpful. The next day we went to Epcot, which we'll get to. But he thought it was amazing. But just walking around Avatar Land was actually fantastic. It was just so cool to see. Like, it's really amazing what they can do and the construction they have and the way they developed the park and the way they built it. It's really amazing.
It's definitely the coolest place in the park. There's a lot of shade.
It's a really interesting land and ride, knowing that obviously Avatar has its fans, but it's not like some classic IP. It's not like it's Star Wars or it's Mickey Mouse or something like that. But so many people love the land and can appreciate the immersion of it, even though it's not an IP that maybe they're as invested in.
Oh,
So
just wait until the next 5 movies come out all
I
for
know,
the next
but
5 years.
I think it just goes to show that if you build something amazing, it doesn't matter what the IP is, right? So,
100%.
If you build it, they will come.
Yes.
Yeah. So from there, we did the safari, and we did.
I was just going to ask, I hope you got a chance to do the safari, so that's cool.
5-minute wait. We walked right on.
Nice.
We walked right down and got on the ride. It was so fantastic. And being in New York, we go to the Bronx Zoo a lot, which is probably one of the biggest zoos in the country. And you get pretty good access there. This was 10 times better. The fact you go through and you're right there. Like, we had a giraffe walk right up to our truck. He was like just amazing. So blown away. And actually, we've been watching a couple episodes of the new show on Disney Plus about the Animal Kingdom. Safari. So he's like, that's Mac the elephant. There he is. We saw him. So, all these little things that they do, and they pull you in like that, and that's what starts to get you like, oh wow, this is really starting to.
Mike, it's just the beginning, because Disney starts, like, over the next 10 years of everybody's life, little things are gonna start connecting in your brain. If you truly had an amazing experience where you're gonna start going down again in a year from now or 2 years from now, whenever you might want to do that. You start getting, this is what Disney does well, and anybody listening already knows this, right? But it's just like, you're going to start remembering smells, and those smells are going to tie to the moments of the park. And then the sounds are going to remind you. And then when you go back again, it just becomes more reinforced. And then you build more memories on it, and it's ridiculous. Absolutely. It's like, it's its own, I don't want to say it's a drug, because that has negative connotations, but it's like a good cup of coffee. You always want to know.
It is. And I can't remember what else we did. We did a couple more things. I think we maybe hit another ride or two. And then we got caught in a downpour, unfortunately. Like, it just buckets of rain on us.
That happens.
And unfortunately, for anybody who's listening, bring 2 pairs of shoes.
Oh, yeah.
We made that mistake. We only brought a pair of sneakers each and flip-flops to the pool, and both of our sneakers got soaked. And that resulted in a really nasty blister forming on my foot, which hampered me a little bit later on in the trip.
Okay, so
the next I went to put them on, they were still damp.
Yeah, that's a rule that most Disney veterans have. There was a second pair of socks in your bag and well-worn shoes that you don't mind getting wet in case it happens.
I had the second pair of socks, but they were so soaked it didn't. We tried our best to dry them.
Yep.
And then we actually had dinner in Avatar, in the Avatar. I can't remember the name of the restaurant.
Sutuli's Canteen.
I think so. That's the quick service place.
Yep.
I think.
Yep. Best quick service on property, in my opinion.
Yeah. So that was one of the things that we got with the program. Was great. We got certificates. All our food was included. So we got we got a certificate for any quick service restaurant for a combo and a drink, or like a burger and a side and a drink type thing. The only thing that really bugged me was that the certificates had a barcode and a QR code on it, and we tried scanning it and it wouldn't accept it. And we asked somebody. We went stopped at guest services. Like, we don't know why it doesn't work. Because we wanted to do the pre-order. We wanted to order online and just go pick it up, but we couldn't. So we were forced to wait in line to get our food, which is kind of annoying. But, it's included.
I'm wondering if it's because they're not really doing the dining plan now, and kind of that certificate you have sounds like kind of the equivalent of a dining plan credit, and maybe they're just not.
But it has a QR code. When you go to the app, it says scan your QR code. There's a function on it to do it. And we thought we'd be able to do that. We could just scan it in, do our pre-order and just pick up our food and eat. But, I get they're trying to push the mobile app ordering, but they have like 6 lanes of mobile app and two cashiers, and the lines like at the door. I'm like, and the people standing there at the mobile are doing nothing. I'm like, I think you could move over, maybe open 2 more registers, but I get what they're trying to do. I understand it.
All right, so let's move on. So you finish your day at Animal Kingdom, you go back, you've got your mandated hour of study, and your lights out. So I imagine you probably get back and settle in your hotel by like 7, 8 o'clock or so, and then you maybe got some time for like pool time and dinner.
Yeah, the kids do pool time. I'm done. I'm in the room. I'm like, you guys can stuff. I'm gonna stay here. We had dinner.
You had air conditioning time.
We had air conditioning time, exactly. Shower, air conditioning, relax. I actually caught up some work stuff. I didn't bring my computer, but I did bring my work phone. Keeping track of emails, trying to clean out the stuff, and doing that adulty stuff while the kids are off playing.
There you go. So next day is Epcot. Are you doing the same thing in the morning again? You're doing recordings and getting to the park by 1 o'clock?
So Epcot we go right to the park. We're there for
very cool.
like 9 o'clock. And this day there's no coach transportation. We have to take the Disney transportation from Coronado to Epcot.
So are you still now just split up to whatever groups like you were at the parks? Like everybody's responsible to get there?
So everybody's going together. So the hotel was great, and they actually had their transportation person called to have extra buses there waiting for us.
Oh,
that's
good.
great.
To bring us to the resort, so we didn't overwhelm it.
Yeah, because otherwise, if you were just waiting for the normal cycle,
you can't have 140 people. You wouldn't
Yeah.
do it. So they had 3 buses waiting for us to kind of ship us off, and then we trickled back on our own time as we wanted to as the day ended. But the kids were broken off to their sessions at their appropriate time. So the chaperone would bring the kid to the park entrance. They get they get on the coach bus, go to do their thing, and then the chaperone will meet them, and they swap in and out all throughout the course of the day, depending on what they did and where they were going. So that was kind of their thing. So, but again, we just kind of went off and did our own thing. We got there to Epcot. First thing we did was I did buy a Lightning Lane. I did buy Genie Plus for the day for the 2 of us for Epcot, because I looked at some of the lines when we got there already. I'm like, this is not gonna. It's too hot. I'm not waiting on lines. I don't have the patience to stand there in the heat.
Well, let me ask you a question, because Genie Plus is a hot topic amongst the community ever since it was announced back in October, or deployed late last year. And is it worth the money, or you feeling kind of like cheapened out that you have to go spend even more money?
100% worth it.
Okay.
Every penny.
That's what I'm hearing from everybody, right? Like I'm balking at it, but
I'm like, F it. I'm like, jump the line.
Just
go right to the front. Who wants to wait? Because also, too, we had a limited amount of time. I knew that, too. We didn't have all day.
Makes sense. Yep,
we couldn't stay till 9, 10 o'clock at night. We had to leave the park. When you leave the park, it's an hour. By the time wherever you are in the park, you say, I'm going to go back to the hotel. It's an hour until you get back to the hotel. By the time you walk out, get back to the entrance, get to the bus stop, wait for your bus, take your bus back to Coronado, it's a solid hour from the time you leave. So that you'd account for that in your day.
That's what a lot of people, that's a great point. For those that are out there that are semi-planners or somehow listening to our podcast and learning to be planners in some fashion, you always have to consider leaving the park, disentangling, getting onto a bus, getting back to your resort, or the reverse is always 40 minutes to an hour.
At least. And Coronado is considered, a value property, so the buses don't run quite as frequently as do for some of the other resorts. We saw several for the other resorts come through like twice before one came for us.
I think you just got unlucky at that point, because they're
yeah. I was going to say, whether value, moderate, deluxe, I feel like whatever one you are, it comes last.
Yes,
that's just the way it is. Okay,
yeah.
But that was something we had to account for. Like, so if we needed to be back at the hotel by 6, we needed to really kind of think we needed to leave by 5. But we got there at 9, so I'm thinking, with food and walking around and stuff, we really got about 6 to 7 hours. So I don't want to waste time waiting online to do stuff.
So what attractions did you end up doing?
We all beeline straight for Soarin'.
Okay,
that was the first thing we did. And we had our Genie Plus. I bought my Genie Plus. I got my Lightning Lane for it right there. I was able to go right on. We did it, and it blew me away. I'd never done it before, and it was absolutely amazing.
Yeah, that's basically Flight of Passage.
I was going to say, if you like Soarin', then you would love Flight of Passage, because Flight of Passage is sort of like the next generation of Soarin'.
Yeah, it was just, I couldn't. I actually listened to the song. I actually found it, and I was like, it's written by Jerry Goldsmith. I'm like, when you listen to it, like, oh, I can hear little bits of Rudy in there. Like, you can. It's it just left such an impression on me that we actually did it. I actually wound up doing it twice that day.
Awesome.
So that was really good. Since you were right there was no line. Again, 5-minute wait. We went and did Nemo, me and him. It's like, let's go Nemo. We did it, which was kind of Again, I think that's a ride that needs to be updated. It's kind of old.
Phil and I were talking about this. This is not even a ride. It's just basically an entryway.
It was built into something that used to just take you from one area to another. Like it's not even really supposed to be a ride. They've converted it to a ride, and it's like a fun little thing, but it's not. It doesn't really compare to many other full attractions.
Sure. But I will say is that the aquarium attached to it was actually phenomenal. We spent a good half hour, 40 minutes in there. We saw some really cool stuff. Never seen dolphins before. So they had a dolphin exhibit that was really cool. They had a manatee up top where you could actually, he was in recovery. They was swimming around. You get right up close to him. So my son really enjoyed that. We spent a good half hour in there. He thought that was really cool. And then from there, we used one of our Lightning Lanes that we got from our little Disney Magic from Flight of Passage. We went over to Test Track and we used that. That's
a good use of them.
That was a good use for Test Track. And that was awesome. I'd never done that before either. That when you come out of there and you hit that straightaway, I was not expecting that. That was absolutely fantastic. That was so cool. And so afterwards, my son's like, "Is that just like driving a convertible on the Parkway?" I'm like, Probably you have a little bit more windshield, but yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of like it. Like you're driving on the, if you see somebody driving down the road in a convertible, I guess that's what it feels like because we hit like 58, 59 miles an hour. That was very cool.
Yeah, that's your son is going to remember that for every time he goes back on that ride. Once he gets back there, he's going to remember that moment forever.
I was going to say you're going to have to watch when he's old enough to drive. Though he's going to want to drive like that.
So one of the things we did notice was that the time of year that we were there were actually not terribly heavy crowds. The big stuff was 2-hour waits. All the top things were had the really long waits, but everything else was like 25 to 30 minutes, maybe a little less, sometimes 15 minutes. So it wasn't really very crowded. So when we came on a test track, there was nobody there. So he did the thing where we did the commercial. He got to race his own car. Like he did all the stuff because there was no one there. There was no crowds. It was kind of nice too. So we weren't really bumping into people. We had space to do stuff. So we did test track, and then we went up to. From there, we went up to the American Pavilion.
Okay.
And we went to go see the
nice long walk.
show. We went to go see the show there, not the singing show, the stage piece.
The American Adventure.
American Adventure.
It's an excellent show.
It was very good. Again, something I was like, well, we're here. You're supposed to be in school, so let's go do something educational. We'll some schoolwork here. Again, inside break, which was nice. Take a break from the sun for 25 minutes or so. But it was a really good show. It was well done. But not a lot of people. It was like that huge theater. There was like no one there. And then thinking about it now as I talk about it, it's kind of repetitive to Liberty Square in Magic Kingdom. It's kind of like having the same thing in two different places. So I don't know. So going back to your conversation about redoing Frontierland, is that something you change because you already have it at Epcot?
I don't think they ever get rid of Hall of Presidents, Phil.
I don't think you would, but the feel is very similar between the two areas. So then. We looked at Ratatouille, but we could not purchase. We weren't able to quickly purchase the extra lightning lane for that one because that's not a lightning lane. You have to buy it. What Cameron called it, you have to buy it.
Well, one is an individual lightning lane and then regular lightning lane.
So we couldn't get the individuals for Ratatouille, and it was like a 2-hour wait. I'm like, well, I'm not going to France to wait for 2 hours.
No.
But we were like, well, let's look at Frozen. Now, Frozen is also the same thing, but Frozen was only 45 minutes. I'm like, I'll do 45 minutes. And he really wanted to do it because he loves Frozen too. So we had a little Disney magic on that one as well. So we're probably about 25, 30 minutes into the wait. We're inside, but we haven't gotten through Oaken's trading store yet.
Okay.
And he looks at me and goes, I gotta go to the bathroom. I'm like,
oh no.
Can you hold it? He goes, I'm like, ugh. So I get a cast member's attention. I'm like, how far do you realistically, how far do you think we are from this spot to get on the ride? Because you really need to go to the bathroom. He says, probably 25 minutes. I'm like, so we're about halfway. I'm like, he's like, I can't do it. I'm like, all right. So he goes, no, she's like, come with me. We'll go to the bathroom. We'll bring you back online. So she walks us out. We go to the bathroom. We come back to the thing. She's like, you know what, guys, come with me. She bring us down the lightning thing. He puts us at the front of the gate. Goes, put these two guys on next. So him and I to go to the bathroom saved us
25 minutes.
20 minutes of waiting around. I'm like, all right, way to go. So, but when you're, and that's the thing too. When you're traveling in a group of two, it's so much easier to navigate and do stuff. You're not like in this big mess. Where I heard another story from one of the other chaperones is there were two chaperones. They both had 4 kids each, and one of the kids had to go to the bathroom.
It's like everybody's got to go.
They brought them back and put them right back in line where they were with their big group. So I think when it's just the two of you, they can kind of
sneak you in there, right?
Yeah. So that was kind of nice. And Frozen was very cool. The animatronics and the visual effects were very very. I wish it was a little bit longer though. It was kind of short. I wish it was like maybe a minute and a half longer of a ride, but
yeah, there's a lot of shorter rides that probably could use a good minute or two left on it. But yeah, that's a common theme with a lot of Disney rides.
But some of the rides are actually really long. Like Soarin' is fantastic. That's a great length ride. That's a good 4.5, 5 minutes. That's a good ride. Test Track is a decently length ride. Dinosaur is a good length. Like you feel like some of them you get your entertainment out of it for the time you have to wait. You get a good return on it. Some of them not so much.
Phil, I don't know if you listened to Matt's latest podcast, but is the previous one.
Yeah, I was actually just thinking of that, where his brother kind of ranked all the rides
based on the length.
And he had a lot of it was his brother's first time going down, or first time in a very long time, and he had kind of when he was ranking them, I think he took a similar thing into account, where he's like, look, we waited 40 minutes and the ride was 2 minutes, Slinky Dog, something like that.
Yeah,
that got knocked down in his ranking versus something. He's like, yeah, we waited, 20 minutes, but then the ride was 12 minutes or, like something like Spaceship Earth or something like
So
higher in his list. He factored in sort of length of the ride.
yeah. So I'm trying to think, what do we do after that? So we did the American Pavilion, we did Frozen. Then we stopped and had lunch in Mexico, which was great. We stopped at the little cantina place there on the water, sat in the pavilion in the shade overlooking the lake. We had a nice lunch. And then from there, I passed them off to my wife because she had dropped off her kids to the for the music program. So she was flying solo the rest of the day because they're going to go back to the hotel directly from the studio. So she took him and I went back to the hotel. I'm like, I'm done. It was like 106 degrees. Like I'm finished. I'm gonna go back and get some more air conditioned time. But we had a good time, and we think like we still saw a lot. I feel like we accomplished a lot. There's probably some stuff I missed in there, but for the amount of time we had, and it was good. Oh no, that's what we did. We met up with her. We went back and did Soarin' again together, and we did Living with the Land.
One of Phil's favorites.
No ride, and we actually found it really fascinating. It was actually really really very cool. I'd stopped and grabbed my Mickey pretzel on the way out. With my cheese dip, I think there's a requirement to have at least one Mickey pretzel and one Mickey ice cream while you're there. I think you can't.
I'm not disagreeing with that. Not disagreeing with that whatsoever.
So, and then Phil actually made a really great point and gave me a heads up on something before I left, was that any place that's quick service, any place with a self-serve soda fountain, you can refill your water, which was a huge benefit to know that going in, because we all bought giant water bottles. We just kept filling them and drinking them all day.
It's the only way to do it.
We didn't have to drop a ton of money on water, which was a really great tip to know going in. And I told a lot of people too going in, like even if you buy your $3 bottle, save it and go fill it up all day long.
Yep. I'm just amazed, and I guess this is why there's 1,000 websites with all the same kind of advice kind of put together. Literally, people are not expecting a lot of these like tips and tricks when they go to these parks because they're not thinking about it. They're used to like their local, amusement park where they can get, a couple bottles of water. They're only there for like 5 or 6 hours versus 106-degree weather, and you're there for 8 hours a day for 3 days in a row. It's a totally different experience from everything. So, I mean, Mike, it's always refreshing to hear from somebody that's not like building spreadsheets and packing like all that other stuff. It's great.
And I feel like we had a really good time, considering I really didn't have a plan. Like I had 2 or 3 things I wanted to do per park. Like Soarin' was on my checklist and Test Track on my checklist for Epcot, and we got to do those 2 things. So I'm like, great. American Pavilion was on there. I'm like, I'm looking at the map. I'm looking across the lake. I could see, I can see Independence Hall, and we're standing like at the entrance. So I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so far away, and it's so hot. But we did it, and it was worth it. And I'm glad we did it because it was worth the walk. And we enjoyed it, and it was great. And
well, I think what helped was you went into this trip with, I think, the right expectations, where you were like, we're doing this because the price is amazing, and what we get done, we get done. Yeah, and we know we're not going to get everything done.
Yeah.
I think it's the people that go in thinking like, I don't have to do any planning and I'm going to be able to just do everything I want.
No,
those are the ones that I think leave disappointed.
Yeah, we went in knowing we're not going to get to everything. Like we had a choice. Like when we finished the American experience, like, all right, we can go right, and we can go to Ratatouille, or we can go left and go to Frozen. Let's look at the wait times: 2 hours versus 45 minutes. So like, easy
Done.
choice. We're going back this way, and you just have to make those decisions. Like, what you get, you and you don't. And again, he didn't know what he was missing because he hasn't been there since he was 2. So this is he's basically going for the first time himself. And I felt like I was as well because it's been so long. And Phil planned everything for us when we went. So going and kind of like making up as I go while we were there, I felt like it was kind of a first time trip. So,
well, I mean, like the good thing is having like, a good friend like Phil in your back pocket. It's, what you can end up. The advice I give a lot of people, like, other moms and dads at like birthday parties or barbecues. Oh, I'm going to Disney, I'm bringing my kids. It's my first time ever type of stuff. I'm like, you don't want to get involved in planning. That's fine. I kind of start hinting at you should probably figure out what you want to do. And the one piece of advice is basically have an idea of where you want to eat and a couple things you want to accomplish so you're not paralyzed by indecision.
Yeah.
Like, do I go here or do I go here? Should I do this? And you're standing around in the middle of the park with an app or a map or something else like that, kind of figuring out just know where things are generally.
Yeah.
And just kind of go and do it.
Yeah, we had no dining reservations, but because we knew we had the meal vouchers, it limited the places we can go. It's like, well, you have these couple of places, so when you're hungry, if you're nearby, just go there. So there wasn't a whole lot of craziness. So I went back. They hung around the park a little bit more, and they came back and same thing. Dinner back at Coronado Springs. We ate at their main restaurant, which is called Mercado, which is in the tower. It was actually, the food was actually really good. I'm not going to complain. Like, for, and it's not fine dining, but I thought it was really good for what you're getting for, and the prices were not outlandish. I think for what they were charging versus the quality and the quantity of food you got, I thought it was pretty reasonable actually.
Fair enough. I've not been to the tower since it's been built, so one of these days I'll get back there.
So, like, if I had to pay cash, I'm like, if I was actually paying out of pocket, like, I think it was like, $18.99 for like their combo dinner. And it was a pretty sizable meal. Like, there was actually 2 nights where I actually even finished my dinner. It was so much. So I thought it was, the amount of food and the quality and the price were not, it's expensive. Obviously, you're going to spend a lot. If you have 4 people, you're doing it 4 times a day, 3 times a day, it's going to add up. But I mean, I didn't think it was, they could have charged a lot more if they wanted to, and people would still pay it. So
yep, no, for sure.
I think it was out of whack. So the next day was Hollywood Studios, and this is where things get wonky with the tickets. Is that morning, the app for some reason disconnected our reservation from the hotel to the app, and it says I was not staying in a Disney resort, so I couldn't purchase the individual Lightning Lane for Rise of the Resistance.
Oh no!
So by the time I called customer service, they couldn't find it, and again, you're trying to sift through these hundreds of reservation numbers with the group, and I had to give them the information for the tour company and the school, and they're trying to find stuff. It was gone. It sold out by the time
typically it sells out pretty quickly anyway.
So that's one of the things that's a challenge if you do go with a group, is that your tickets are given to you last minute, usually the day you get there. Like the day we got there, like, here's your ticket. Like, we got it the day, that afternoon when we arrived at the resort on Tuesday. So we're sitting there trying to like connect tickets and reservations and looking through. Fortunately, my wife's the chaperone, so you had the spreadsheet with all the numbers and stuff. So we're shifting and typing and trying to link stuff, and it just didn't happen. So I'm like, well, it is what it is. We'll see what it's like when we get to the park, and we'll try it. But we got to Hollywood Studios. We did Genie Plus again for that day because I felt it was worth it for the amount of things we wanted to do.
And you're just getting it for you and your son at this point, correct?
Just for me and my son.
It's not that expensive. Yeah, it's $30.
So $30 for the 2 of us. We actually did splurge. My wife did actually get it for herself, my daughter, and the 3 girls. We treated the 3 girls for that day for Hollywood Studios.
I mean, if they're going to do it for any park, Hollywood Studios is a good park to do it.
So unfortunately, Slinky Dog is not one of those. Slinky Dog is an individual Lightning Lane. It's not a general Lightning Lane. So the girls really wanted to do it, and they waited. The standby time said 50. I'm like, I will do 50. It wound up being over a 2-hour wait.
That must have broken down while you were there.
Yeah,
that's the only way.
It was. They just waited 2 hours. The time was just off, and they just got stuck there.
That surprises me because typically the posted wait times are longer than the actual wait times.
That's what they thought, but no, the ride never stopped. There was no rain.
Okay.
I wonder if they were catching up or something, because actually Slinky Dog is a Genie Plus ride, but it sells out really quick in the morning. So I'm wondering if it just might have been that it was gone for the day by the time you tried to get them.
That might actually be it.
And what might have happened is it went down earlier in the day, and now they had to play catch up with the Lightning Lane people. Yep. So instead of normally doing 5 people in the Lightning Lane for every standby person, they were doing 10 or 15 or something.
It's like the old Fast Pass Plus days.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. But 2 hours is just, that's so much of your day, right? Because you get, like you said, you guys don't have the whole day, really.
Right.
So that's a big chunk of the day gone.
And that was Friday, so that was another studio day for the kids. So the kids had to leave and swap in and out that day for their studio session. So again, they're there to be working. It is a school-sponsored trip, and they're supposed to be doing music program and stuff. So the music kids, didn't get as much time either because they had to leave for 3 or 4 hours, and then then they come back, and then the other kids would leave for 3 or 4 hours, and so they even had more limited time. But we got there. So my son and I, we see you later. We'll catch up. We did Star Tours.
Okay,
which was
classic.
I still think it's fun. I enjoyed it. He loved it.
I love it every time I go on Star Tours. I love that ride.
I mean, he freaked out when the screen dropped and he saw C-3PO. He was like, oh my god, he's right there. Like he was like, that was the most amazing thing.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it gets dogged on a little bit just because it's like there are better simulator ride now and there are better Star Wars rides there now, but it's still a solid ride, and it's Absolutely. Like usually has Absolutely. Very low wait, so it's another one where the experience versus the wait time is usually pretty high ratio.
And the walkthrough was we took our time, even though we lightning leaned it, we still took our time going through, look at all the stuff, and we're in no rush.
The queue's pretty cool in that one. A lot of cool stuff there.
It's definitely neat, see the droids and ships and stuff. I mean, to him, it's all like, to a 10-year-old, it's all magic. So,
Mm-hmm.
and then from there we went over to see Indiana Jones, which was fantastic.
Okay.
Didn't get to see that the last time we were there. That was on my bucket list last time. We didn't get it, and I'm glad we did this time. And it was really awesome. And he loved it. Again, wide eyes, explosions, fire, machine guns, like, you know. And then we see this other kid down there talking to them afterwards. Like, you want to go meet him? He goes, yeah. So we go down, and we spent like 10 minutes talking to Indiana Jones and Marion, and he took a picture with them.
Oh, that's pretty awesome.
It was really, they were so gracious and so nice, and they talked to him, they answered all his questions. You know, it was like, you know, are you scared? Like, how long you been doing this? Is it fun? Do you get to be in movies? Like, they answered all his questions, and they were really, really very cool about it.
That's pretty neat. I didn't realize they did, because I know they've taken out the like audience participation part of the show, but I guess they're still available there if you go after and just are polite.
Again, when you're just two people and it's kind of quiet, you know, the crowds aren't crazy, you get little extra things.
Right, that's true. Yeah, if it was like 4th of July or something like that, they probably don't have time for that. But
right. So we did that, and then we went over to. We made our way to Galaxy's Edge, but we passed by the Muppet Theater. Like, the show was starting in like 2 minutes. It was like 2 minutes to top of the hour. Like, let's go. So we did the Muppet Show. He liked that. That was fun. Again, a classic.
Mm-hmm.
You know, nothing special, but 3D. He laughed. He enjoyed it. So he still likes slapstick. And then we got to Galaxy's Edge, and I think I was as excited as he was, because now I'm a 10-year-old. Because I walked in there, I'm like, holy cow!
Yep.
This is why I came. This is why we tacked on for this trip, was just to go to the Galaxy's Edge, and it met every expectation. It was absolutely phenomenal. It was so amazing to go and see that stuff, and just to see everything in scale was just fantastic. It really was. And I can't wait when they do the character interactions. They start bringing, the characters into it, and the meet and greets, and having them roam around. I mean, it's really going to elevate the space. It was amazing.
Let me know if you agree with me, but I think one of the best parts of that land, yes, obviously you've got the immersion, the sets, it's all at scale. That's great. But I think what ties it all together is the music of the whole land. When you walk in, you just start hearing that Star Wars theme music.
Mm-hmm.
It locks everything together.
And also, even not the music, the sounds. Like,
well, that's what I mean.
The
some of the ships going off, and I don't know, things powering up and powering down, and droids and stuff like that. Like, there's not as many like roaming things, but you hear a lot of the sounds on the things on the sides.
Yeah. So one of the great things was that's what we're supposed to do. So I did a lightning lane for Toy Story Mania.
Okay.
For me and my son. So we're watching Indiana Jones. Apparently the ride broke while we were watching the show. So here are 2 lightning lanes as a sorry, because the ride broke during the time you're supposed to show up. I'm like, okay. So I rebook it again. So at this point, I booked it for later in the afternoon. We'd still be there, but it was a little bit later. So we grabbed those 2 lightning lanes, and we went to go do Smuggler's Run.
Now, as a Star Wars fan, I thought that was almost as good or better than Rise.
So here's the thing. We go in, I talk to the cast member, we're sitting there waiting, I'm like, this is our first time ever here. Could we be pilots? He goes, he shuffles a couple of people around, we get the 2 pilot seats. Because somebody, one of the other dads told me, goes, you got to be a pilot. You got to do the pilot seat. So we get in there, we sit in the pilot seats. I mean, my jaw drops.
Oh, I know. It's the whole canopy and everything. It's amazing.
I'm like, oh, this is it, man. This is why we're here. This is the whole reason we're here. So I sit in the left seat, Owen sits in the right seat, and we're doing the ride and stuff. And I totally nerded out. Like, we're at the light speed. And what's his name? What was the guy's name? Hondo.
Yep.
Hondo comes out, okay, prepare to jump to light speed. And I look at him and go, Owen, punch it. And he yanks the thing, and we take off. It was like absolute father-son moment right there. It was fantastic. That was the highlight of the trip right there for me. Like, that was amazing. And,
let me interject, because this ride hit me very much the same. And we ended up we went down right after Labor Day last year. This is the first time back in the parks in 2 years. This is after 3 canceled trips that we were planning to go there due to COVID. Mm-hmm. And my first time on the ride, I get pilot. It's great, and it's a great time. But because of, all you have to do is just go right off, and you go right back on. There were no lines part of the days. So we were just we ended up doing it 4 or 5 times at the end of the day. I have video, because I was sitting back in the engineer seat, because my wife and our son were piloting, and then our oldest daughter was piloting. And I have videos of them like go to Lightspeed, and my wife or one of my kids just grabs it and just jams it down, and you go see the star field, and, you go, and it's just like I have it on video, and it's like the most. Everybody's like cheering and screaming. It's one of the best moments.
But what's great is that being in the pilot seats with him is you feel like you're by yourself. You don't even know that the people behind you feel like it's just the two of you, because the screen is so immersive for the two of you, and you just felt like it was just the two of us, and it was like that was phenomenal.
And that's something you'll remember for the rest of your life.
Absolutely, and I think he will too. And then we come off the ride and we go under the Millennium Falcon to gawk some more.
Yep.
And Chewie and Rey walk out, and he snaps a picture with them. I'm like, that's it. We've done it. We've peaked.
Yeah.
This is it. This is what we came for. So yeah, then we walked around some more. We just spent like 25 minutes just walking around, just looking and touching and just kind of taking it all in. And he's like, he loves Luke's land speeder. I'm like, there's got to be one here somewhere. And I asked two cast members, like, I don't know, which I was surprised I didn't know. But then we finally found it was like back in the corner somewhere.
Yeah.
And like in one of the back alleyways, we found the land speeder. We went over to Kylo Ren's ship. He took a picture with a stormtrooper. He bought some stuff in the Empire store there by that area. Then we went back and met up with my wife and the girls for lunch. Then we did Star Tours again, and we went with them to Galaxy's Edge. And my wife had booked them the lightning lanes for it, and we had lightning lanes, and the timing worked out. I was able to get 2 more since we bought Genie Plus as well. We lightning laned it, and we all got on all 7 of us got on together. So one we sent, it was me and my son and my wife did, and we sent the 4 girls to another ship, and we kind of split up and met afterwards, but It was worth it to do again. We wanted to do Rise. The line said 2 hours all day long. It was down twice. Once because of a pretty big thunderstorm came through. Like, huge thunderstorm, like a good 35 minute soaker. But got caught right at the right time. We were in Galaxy's Edge, right by Kylo Ren's ship, and there's a big, huge like tunnel right there that goes nowhere. We just ducked in there for 20 minutes and waited it out, and that was a good place to be when the storm hit. We didn't get it. People who we went with did say it. They said, well, it said 2 hours. It said it was more like an hour 20, but I'm like, maybe I should have done it, but incentive to go back and do it again another time.
Well, let me just tell you this: the ride is phenomenal. It's an incredibly immersive storytelling experience. I'm not downplaying that whatsoever, but partially some of the best parts of the ride are part of the queue and the aspects and the visuals that you get before you get on the ride. And I'm not going to spoil it, but when you go down and you go through the queue, just have your camera ready because there's a lot of cool spots where you can snap pictures that are just amazing. So, unless you spoil it for yourself, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But I'm not going to do that.
No, I haven't seen it. So hopefully, we like I said, we've been talking when we want to go back probably at a winter time when it's a little bit cooler.
Well, let me do this. Let me do this because I'm going to wrap up this trip report, and it's been awesome. And I really love getting the view of somebody that's not an Uber planner or this is their 10th trip in 5 years type of thing, right? Mm-hmm. My question to you is, obviously you're doing it again, but what is your excitement level for going down now, doing it with your own plan or your own, under your own, efforts?
I think part of it, I think it's just, it was that cool. It was just, there's so many magical moments there. It really is. They really do capture emotion, like you said, through different things, through whether it's sound or smell or something. Like the moments on the Falcon, you get those little things that just draw you, like you want to experience those things again, where you're just like, those things that go just make you go wow. Right? How many things in life make you go wow anymore? And they do have some really big wow factors down there, whether it's an emotional wow or an excitement wow. And I think those things we want to do. And a lot of things we didn't do, like we didn't do anything at night, so we saw nothing lit up. Like that would be like a whole different experience.
Best times at the park, in my opinion.
Doing Epcot at night, doing Magic Kingdom at night, we doing the fireworks. Like we didn't do any of that stuff. So that's a whole nother. We can go and just be lazy all day and just do nights every place and just have a completely different experience than we did than what we had. And I think that is definitely something we want to do. And we'd actually absolutely space out more time. Like I would not do 4 parks in a row, 4 days in a row, getting up at 6 o'clock every morning, and
that's always my advice. If you're not down for like just park, always do 2 parks in a row, a day off, 2 parks in a row. Unless it's like 2 parks, you do a pool, then you do a pool all day, then maybe go to a park at night for like
something like that. Yeah,
something like that, right?
Yeah, I would definitely, So and our tickets were limited too. We didn't have hoppers. We only had our ticket was good for only one park that day, so we couldn't say we if we want all right, we're done with you know we're done with Hollywood Studios because it's a small park. Let's jump over back to Animal Kingdom again. We couldn't do that.
So my question is, why don't you come down with Phil and I in December then?
I've already mentioned that.
In 6 or 7 months, whatever it is from now.
So funny enough, actually, we were at Phil's last night doing a little Kenobi screening, and he mentioned that. So my wife was like, "Yes, let's do it." I'm like, I'm not sure timing wise we could do it December that quickly, but I'd like to.
It's tough.
I'd like to do it within the next 12 to 18 months. I'd like to do it again.
Yeah,
I would totally pull out the kids out of school and go like early January when it's dead.
Well, there's no dead time anymore. Let me just warn you of that, true. Right?
Because there's crazy and super crazy. But
so when we were there, it wasn't actually that crazy. Like walking through Epcot, like there was all the alcohol stands were busy because people are. I don't know how you could drink that much booze when it's 107. But but walking through, like when we walked from American Pavilion back and down that, there wasn't really you weren't bumping into people. It wasn't it wasn't overrun.
Well, first of all, you weren't at Magic Kingdom, which is going to be the most crowded park out of all of them.
Which wasn't either. Which is our next and final day.
Yeah, he didn't get to his last day.
Oh, okay. Yet. I'm sorry. I cut you off a day. I was trying to count in my head. It seemed like it was 4 days. Okay, so quickly, I'm sorry because we're now over an hour. We're just going to go long. That's fine. And people have to listen to us. So what was your Magic Kingdom? I'm sorry. Say again.
Hopefully they find it interesting. It's some different, like you said, different perspective.
Well, I'm interested. Well, I'm here. I am asking more questions. We've had we're just going to do it. This is what we do every week. We have a list of things we're going to do. We're going to just do it next week, and it just keeps piling up. So okay, so your Magic Kingdom day, was this another full day for you, or
No, this was horrible.
Okay, go ahead.
So I'm trying to think if we did anything else in Hollywood Studios. I think that was it. We stopped and bought some stuff, and I think I left 25 minutes before everybody. I headed out. The wife took the kids and they did Rock and Roller Coaster one more time, and then they caught the tail end of the Pixar parade, and and then they jumped in the bus right after mine and came back to the hotel. So they just beat me by I beat them by half an hour.
Okay,
I think that was it. Dinner, pool time, homework, which there was no homework. Just so you know, if you're going to the school group and you have study hours, just be prepared that your kid's not going to do any homework, and they have to cram it all in when they get back because there's no time.
Obviously,
even though they block it, you're exhausted. Pool time ran over. You can stay an extra half hour for pool time. The kids were hot. They did so great today. So just plan that if the kids get homework, that they're not gonna get it done. So, so then we did Magic Kingdom on Saturday. This is the crazy part. We went to Magic Kingdom, and we were leaving from the park to go back to the hotel to get on the buses to go to the airport the same day, which is
this is my main complaint of how this whole thing was planned out. But go ahead.
It's not my planning. So again,
well, yeah, but whoever the travel agent was, shame on them.
Well, no, this is what the school wanted. They wanted to do this. They wanted to be back on Saturday so kids could have Sunday off to rest and recover and be back to school on Monday.
Well, no, just picking Magic Kingdom that specific day. That's the cadence of the parks. Because
I'm not sure why they picked the order of the parks because the parks we went to did not play a part in their music program. So it wasn't like they were doing stuff at park.
Right.
The studio was off park property. It was in Disney property, but it wasn't at the park, so the parks didn't really make a difference.
Well, because I still want to talk to you, Phil. What would you have changed? And before you get into your Magic Kingdom story, which I definitely want to hear, you do Animal Kingdom the last day, right, Phil? You get there the earliest, you can see most of the stuff, and you could be out because the Animal Kingdom.
That's what I would have done, absolutely.
And Magic Kingdom has the most stuff. That's where you get your bang for your buck for Genie Plus because there's so many different things you could do. So that would have been, I would have swapped probably. I would have done Animal Kingdom the last day. I would have did Epcot the first day, and then kept Hollywood Studios the same day because Magic Kingdom's the busiest on Saturdays too, and that's why.
I would have done Magic Kingdom on the Tuesday or Wednesday or something the first full day, and shorten one of the other parks for sure. But again, same thing. Up at 6, breakfast, and then not only is up at 6 at breakfast, but it's also bring all your luggage, bring all the instruments, bring all the kids, check in, sign in, boarding passes, blah blah blah. Head count 3 times. Okay, everybody got, again, same thing. Resort was great. The resort was fantastic. Every morning they had buses there for us to take us to the park, which was really awesome that they called ahead to have extra buses to bring us out, which was big kudos to Coronado, to the transportation director for doing that. So we get there. Again, we split off. We don't have to, but I kind of go off on my own because I'm they want to do the mountains. They want to do Space Mountain, Thunder Mountain, Splash Mountain. I'm go ahead. I'm going to go be lazy and wander around the park by myself because I'm cooked at this point. I would not do a 4th day in a row.
Did you get the bacon and egg smells early in the morning going down Main Street? That's the
I
best.
did.
That's the best part of the
It was good. Mixed with the horses, but they were out too. So it was a little ripe. It was pretty warm. I did not get a Genie Plus that day, but again, the wait times for stuff were not bad. I did a lot on my own actually. I did every ride in. Oh no, I take that back. I did buy a Genie Plus. I'm sorry, I bought one for myself. And actually, guest services were fantastic because we didn't have time to call on the telephone. My wife took the 4 girls and my son to go do that stuff. I'm like, let me go find guest services. I'll figure it out. And they were able to do it. It's like the little kiosk transfer his ticket from my app to her app, no problem. They found the names. We coordinated email. It took about 15 minutes, but they were able to do it. And then she had him with his Genie Plus, and she's able to control his ticket and book stuff on his behalf then going forward.
Oh,
so
okay.
she was super. So that was really great that they were able to do that. So they took him off my app, put him on her app, so she could do all the Genie Plus booking for them. And again, we treated the girls that we were chaperoning to Genie Plus as well, because again, super limited time. They wanted to do stuff. We did not have time for lines that day.
Right.
We wanted to get to see it. But I did everything in Tomorrowland. I did Buzz. I did the People Mover. I did the Carousel. I did Hall of Presidents. I did Pirates. I did the Steamboat. I did PhilharMagic. I saw a parade. So I think for only being there for like 4 hours, I feel like I accomplished quite a bit. That's where I think that the Genie Plus really pays off, because I was able to walk on and do so many things without having to wait for anything. I was walk on to every ride. Everything was.
Well, you had the benefit of going on most of the attractions that you wanted aren't the e-ticket or the attractions everybody wants to get on, right? Everybody wants to get on all the roller coaster like things.
Yeah, Buzz was a huge wait. We were able to coordinate between the two groups. I was able to Genie Plus Splash Mountain. I did Splash Mountain with them.
Yep,
that's worth it. That's a must do. The Steamboat, it was okay. Like it was about, again, I was walking by. I got out of the Hall of Presidents. The ship's about to pull out. I'm like, it was just about lunchtime. I'm like, ooh, I had an idea. So I went on, got on the boat. At this point, we're out of meal vouchers. We only had it for breakfast today. Everybody was on their own for lunch that last day.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, oh, now I could do the mobile app. So I did the mobile app at Columbia Inn. I got myself a lobster roll and a bunch of stuff. And I placed the order. By the time the ship pulled back in, my phone buzzed that the food is ready. I'm like, that was perfect.
There you go.
So I didn't sit around waiting for it. I did something at least while I was waiting. I got to see, some of the weird stuff in the background behind Tom Sawyer Island. I'm like, well, this is talking about Splash Mountain. Sometimes some dated attractions. I mean, this is some dated stuff back here. This is that definitely had that 60s Walt himself Disney type feel.
Yep.
Like you could feel
like original park opening type
very
stuff.
original type feel to stuff. Yeah. And I was like, and again, last time we were there and this time, kind of bummed the train was not running.
Yeah. We're all bummed because of that.
Yes, we've been bummed for over 500 days.
We were there. What 8 years ago? It was under renovation, and 8 years later, it's not, and it's not running again. I'm like, come on.
Last time I was on it was 2017.
But I felt like the Genie Plus was worth, and my wife too. She said she definitely felt for there, it was worth it because they were able to walk onto everything they wanted. Space Mountain, Thunder Mountain, Splash Mountain. They did all the stuff they really wanted to do. They did Seven Dwarfs. All that stuff was walk on, and they felt the money was well worth it because we had the limited amount of time. We did not have to wait for everything, and because it was not super crowded, the Genie Plus times were pretty much real time. Maybe 15, 20 minutes after the time you booked it. So if it was like 11 o'clock, the next opening was like 11:15, 11:20. So by the time you did it and walked over, they walked right on, and they did Haunted Mansion. So they accomplished a lot of stuff too. The one thing nobody ever really did was any shopping. There was no time for any of that stuff. We didn't hit any stores.
Most of that stuff's available online anyway.
Yeah, except for Galaxy's Edge. The kids bought lightsabers, so it's like that's a requirement.
Well, Phil,
I was going
to say because as of 3 days, you're not allowed to pre-buy Genie Plus. So, like, if you're buying a package online right now, when you're booking, if you were to book your own trip, go online, book your hotel, you book your tickets, you can buy a Genie Plus add-on. So, but when you go for your trip in 6 months or a year from now, however the longest out year you're planning, you have Genie Plus bought already.
Yeah,
it's going to be a point now as of anything. If you've pre-purchased, you're grandfathered in. At this point, you can only buy it the day of, which it seems that you were able to do that at every one of those parks. So I'm curious how that's going to change, Phil, because he had a great experience. He walked in, he bought it, and he was able to use it. But we've also heard a lot of horror stories where they've gawked in, they've bought it, and they were able to get on one thing, type of
Right.
thing.
I think it depends how crowded it is too, because if it's
Sure.
if the park is packed, then everybody's buying the Genie Plus, and then they would sell out. So I could imagine like some stuff we looked at, like some of the more popular rides that weren't not the individual Lightning, but just the general Lightning lane. Like at 10 o'clock in the morning, the next available one was like 6, 7 o'clock at night. So some of the stuff was moving if you weren't quick. So
some of the strategies, Mike, with Genie Plus, something maybe Phil's already filled you in on this, but like a lot of people, what they call the stack reservations. So they just start booking all of them for late in the day. So when the late in the day rolls around, you just have like 5 of these things just waiting for you, and you can just kind of finish your day just going from one place to the next.
But again, and then from there we left there. We got we had 2 flights going back too, so the flights were about 2 hours apart. We ended up leaving about 20 minutes apart. We both got about 2 hours delayed.
Okay.
And it was a disaster because thunderstorms came through again, and we didn't get back. We didn't get home into our house until about 3 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, wow.
So
That's kind of late.
Rough. Yeah.
So it's definitely good you came back on the Saturday versus Sunday.
That's the other reason too. A little buffer zone in there too for because
you need that. You need a vacation from the vacation. At least a day of rest.
Absolutely. Well, we got several days of rest. Unfortunately, afterwards, some of us got sick when we got home. So, but overall, I would do it again. I had a blast. I think for what we paid and what we got, with kind of really just winging it, I thought we had a fantastic time, and I would totally do it again. I would definitely like to go back and like especially to do stuff at night and see everything again. I think that's a different experience seeing everything at night, and it could be a whole new trip again, just going at night to every place.
Well, I want to just give you the piece of advice because I haven't followed this piece of advice because I've been going in the summer last couple of times. I want to go when the clocks change, right? So you get more evening, right? So the sun goes down earlier, or the dusk starts earlier, what have you. The day starts cooling down a little bit earlier, and the parks are gorgeous at night. So when we go in December, I'm really happy. Well, A, it's going to be cooler than August or July, and B, it's just going to get darker earlier. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Phil, I would love to see Galaxy's Edge at night. I mean, that's got to be like that just makes the experience like 9 times.
A lot of the areas are really cool. Like Galaxy's Edge is cool. Tomorrowland, even Toy Story Land is really neat at night. Like they almost feel like different part, and obviously Pandora too with the glowing there. So it's like absolutely, like I think you're 100% right that you'll almost get like a whole new set of new experiences when you actually get to be there at night.
Yeah.
Phil, my question to you now is there anything like him just winging it, right? There's really not much I would change other than choosing different parks for different days. And I mean, obviously he was limited in time, right? Because he couldn't stay for the rest of the day type of thing. I don't think there's anything he could have done if he planned this 6 months in advance with spreadsheets any differently. I mean, I think he did it better than anybody else, right?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think he ran into some issues with like the ticketing thing by being in the big group that maybe wouldn't have been an issue with if it was his family and stuff like that. Maybe could have maximized some of the early entry things a little bit better.
I mean, just given the limitations that he had, right?
Absolutely. Given the limitations. Yeah, other than maybe saying, screw it, we're going to wait in line for Rise. Other than that, I think he absolutely did a great job getting so much done that he wanted done.
Are we giving Disney kudos for now Genie Plus and being able to not have to plan your trip like we used to have to plan it? Is that actually happening?
Well, I think that was kind of the goal with it. Was they heard people that were saying, I don't know what I want to ride at what time 60 days in advance, or I don't want to have to do that. And I think it can work as long as you use it well and it's not a crowded day.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's when it's like super. Yeah. Oh, sorry, Mike. Go ahead.
And appropriate expectations.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's the huge part, right? Yeah, for sure.
So my expectations are low. I'm like, look, we're going to school group. Things are going to be chaos. We have no plan. Like maybe we won't have a great time at all, but we wound up being to make it a great time and actually got a lot done, so.
All right, so I think we're going to have to wrap up the show. Mike, we really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story. It's a unique one. I think it's different from all of our, I don't want to say our average and normal trip report shows, right? But this was really,
every trip's different, but this has some unique aspects to it. And I think just to share elsewhere, that other family friends of ours that went down for their first trip, family of 6, I gave them some advice, but they were kind of going the same thing, like, we know we're not going to be able to do everything, but we're going to do what we can. We're going to be there all day, and they got in like everything they wanted to. So I think it is possible and they were even staying off property. So it is possible to have a good time at Disney without a spreadsheet.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Phil, we're gonna launch our Discord engagement segment. So why don't you tell everybody what this week's topic is?
So I think I'm going to go with, because it was more relevant to this timeline, was, and Mike even had a few examples of this where there, kind of some things happened with the rides and how he was compensated. But it came up this week that some people were riding the new Guardians ride and the pre-shows were skipped because they weren't working. And I was kind of saying, if I paid, $17 a person for my family to ride that using the individual lightning lane, and we skipped the pre-shows, which are pretty important to telling the story, I wouldn't be happy. So the question is, how do you think Disney should handle it if a paid individual lightning lane attraction has to run, but it's running in B mode?
So make sure everybody out there hop on Discord and have that discussion. Mike, do you have an opinion? I'll talk about this next week as we discuss it. But if you were getting one of those individual lanes where you just paid $30 for you and your son to get on, or $20, whatever it is at that point, and you didn't get the full experience, is that something you would expect like some compensation for, or would you just shrug your shoulders and move on?
No, I would expect like a refund or something. I'd rather get my money back than even get a lightning lane for another ride. Like if I shelled out that kind of cash for front of the line for a special ride and I can't get it, just refund me my money. And I'll try again another time, or if I have hoppers or something, but I wouldn't.
Or yeah, I mean, I guess, well, we'll talk about it more next week, the different scenarios. But yeah, I think it's just once you start explicitly charging for something, for an experience, the expectations for that experience are increased.
Absolutely.
So we just so everybody knows, we skipped the Ask Me Anything segment, and I think, Phil, didn't I screw up last week's because I didn't even have you ask me anything? It was just my question.
No, I asked you one.
See, this is my.
It wasn't as we didn't talk about it as much as yours.
Gotcha.
So
okay, I had a good one, and I'm going to save it for next week because I'm going to do it. And then we have we still have attractionality for the Tiki Room just hanging in there. We'll talk about that next week. Other than that, Mike, anything you wanted to add before we officially sign off for this evening?
No,
Mike, did you think of your characters, by the way?
I did. I have my characters.
I gave them a heads up that our top 5 or top 3 was going to be, can you name 3 legacy Star Wars characters you want added to Galaxy's Edge? So I figure I'll let Mike give his answers since he thought about it.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, that's 3 legacy? I have just 3 characters.
Well, just 3 characters that aren't there now.
Well, 3 that I'd like to see. I think top of the list, and there's probably a lot of people at the top of the list, would be Ahsoka.
Oh, I'm guaranteed she's going to be there next year.
She's got to be. I'd like to see Kanan as well. I think he's a very cool character. And I think the animated characters translate better because you're not trying to replicate another human being. So
that's a good point.
You can play around a little bit with who they are and their physical appearance a little bit more, that you're not trying to replicate something. Like when we saw Rey, like, oh, from a distance, Rey, you get up close, you're like,
that's not Rey.
That's not Rey. And then I'd like to see Return of Darth Vader.
Yeah, I'm surprised he doesn't wander the parks. Like maybe he might have still been wandering the parks if COVID never happened and they kind of interject that. But he used to roam the parks a little bit. Not roam the parks, but he was part of the parade that went down.
Right. Well, they took away the Jedi training thing there next to Star Tours, so that's where
he was in the show they used to have in the middle that they've stopped doing once Galaxy's Edge opened.
Yeah. See, I always if I were going to answer this question, and maybe we'll save this for another. You know what? Let's just do it now because why not? Because we're already almost at an hour and a half on the show. I was going to say, like, you strictly cannot do Han, Leia, or Luke for sure, right?
No.
You can't do that. It'd just be too weird. It'd be like, here's fake Luke and there's fake Han, right? Like, they would be too.
Well, it's like when they show they have the guy do Star-Lord from Guardians, and you're like, that's not Chris Pratt. Like,
no, exactly. You can't do it. You can't do it. So it's got to be like characters in costumes that aren't like recognizable. Like obviously you could do Boba Fett because it's a helmet and everything else. Who would I put? I mean, it would be really cool if they could figure out how to do like a Jabba the Hutt kind of doing it. Maybe it's like a person in a costume, but it's like on the what is the thing? That he was the Hutts were being carried around in Mandalorian.
I'd love to see that.
Like not the dais. There's the
guys carrying a Hutt through the park.
Yeah, exactly. But like it's like an inflatable, but like a good one. I don't know, right? Something like that. That would be pretty neat. And then I think the only one would be, some of like the assassins that you saw from on the deck in Empire sitting next to Boba Fett. Like I think a lot of
the other bounty hunters like Bossk and stuff. Yeah,
I think that would be kind of cool. Because who else would you pick? Because like you got C-3PO and R2-D2 already there, right? They're doing things. at
I
one
think
point or the
another.
other.
I think another great one. This is my son's answer was because I asked them what they thought. He said Darth Maul would be a good one.
I could see that. Sure.
Again, makeup, costume, you can really.
You can hide the person,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Who would you say, Phil?
So the first one I feel like I have to say is the Max Rebo.
Of
I
course.
think he would be great if there was like another cantina or at the restaurant or something, and he's playing this. He's just survived everything. He survived Jabba's sail barge blowing up. He knew not to be in the Oasis on the men or the Book of Boba Fett and stuff like that. So he knows people. I had some similar thoughts to Mike. Some of the from Rebels. Seeing like Kanan or Sabine or Ezra would be great. And then the other one who I'd really think would be cool would be to see Thrawn. And because if you read some of the books, he's actually been to Batu a couple times, so they can fit it in and stuff like that. So I think he'd be a really interesting character to see.
I wonder if you could do like a Han or a Luke, but like at a distance, right? Like if they're like on top of a building somewhere where you can't get up and close.
I mean, they've planned to have sort of like stunt shows up on the roofs and stuff like that. So maybe you could do that, but not do like meet and greets.
Kind of like the Marvel and Disneyland.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the only other thing I was thinking, because I saw this was about a month ago, somebody was videotaping one of the shows from the Galactic Star Cruiser, and Rey had like the new lightsaber that actually opens up and lit up, but then like she like leans down, you can obviously see her like drop it on the ground and pick up a more sturdy lightsaber to use like in a battle. Like those type of effects, like you need to be careful with when you kind of doing them on shows, because you obviously it's like that's obvious. I know what you're doing there, type of thing. So you got to be very careful with a lot of legacy characters. It's probably all going to be costume and like secondary characters that you might kind of notice. I think it would be neat if they started populating the land with a lot of characters. Like every once in a while, sneak in like a Lando, but like Lando with like the Jabba's barge like mask, so you could basically it's like it's covering most of his face. You can only see the eyes. You could probably get away with that. Be like, that looks familiar, but then he's gone, type of thing.
Or Leia dressed up as the bounty hunter. That'd be a good one.
Yep, that'd be a good one. Yep, for sure. I dig that. Any more, Phil? Mike, you want to throw in there?
Well, I was also going to say even just having other actors or whoever who are just like playing citizens of the
just more people. Yes.
Because I know, like, when we were in the Wizarding World, they had people who just kind of, like, lived there, and they would roam around, and they were, like, helping my kids with the wands and things like that, and that made it feel more alive. They weren't, like, anybody from the books or the movies, but they were that was their job. I know they say it's the cast members are supposed to kind of play roles, but, like, when your main job is, selling blue milk, you can only do so much.
You're the cashier at that point.
Like that. Yeah, exactly. So I think people whose it's their job is to be, like, those interactive residents would help too, even if it's, and you could pick somebody like, the person's name was in like the 1978 role-playing game or something like that. That like
it doesn't have to have a name.
Real nerd would know, but like nobody else, it doesn't matter. It's just because they're
just get the same costumes and have them like three of them like stand in front of a shop, kind of looking at things and kind of move around, and have them disappear around and go to the other side. Like you don't have to train them to do much, right? It's just kind of walking around and just making the land feel a bit more alive, rather than everybody with their Star Wars T-shirt, like kind of walking around in Galaxy's Edge. That was the original idea for the land, if I remember correctly. Like it's basically a Star Cruiser experience, but for free.
But to your comment about people walking in Star Wars T-shirts, there's actually some very hardcore fans there walking in full robes, and I'm like, dude, how are you not going to pass out?
It's 100 degrees outside.
It's 105 real feel, and he's got these guys with like full black robes with like 19 lightsabers on their belt. I'm like,
well, that's the one thing. That's the one thing I'm annoyed by, like ultra Star Wars fans, because I consider myself a pretty big Star Wars fan. But like, not everybody's a Jedi, right? Like, you can't go walk around like, oh, I'm a Jedi today. You just put on a robe, and like, no one wants to role play around you being like a Jedi, because there's Jedi are not just walking all over the place. This is not like Coruscant and the Jedi Temple before Order 66, and everybody's walking around. It's normal. Like this is.
Well, I know for our first trip, like our kids were kind of dressed up as the characters, but my wife and I, we dressed up as citizens of Batu. Like that's had a style of clothes, and we wore like the same colors and the style of clothing that they wore. And we actually got quite a few compliments from people that they appreciated, like that we kind of were all dressed up together, but we were just kind of trying to fit in. We weren't in Jedi robes or anything like that.
Well, I mean, you could listen
to security for a Galactic Star Cruiser.
Well, no, but that's the thing. Like Star Cruiser, again, I'm going to go back to Len Testa's podcast when he did it for the first time around a couple months ago. It's like you have people that are role playing Jedi like on this. That's got to be the most boring thing in the world because it's like you can't be just a Jedi and then all of a sudden like interject yourself with like Rey and it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't work that way. So you got to be like you got to make up some background for like a normal person that's taking a cruise and gets involved, right?
I'll be a scruffy nerf herder.
There you go. Perfect. All right, Phil. I think we're gonna wrap this up. I've said this 3 times already. And it's been a lie every single time. But at this point, I think we got to go. We're going to hit the 1.5 hour mark. It's going to be one of our longer shows. Mike, again, thank you for coming on and sharing your experience.
My pleasure. I had a blast.
As you, this is what I want, Phil. I know you guys are hanging out as friends outside the podcast. When you start thinking about booking your next trip, like you're narrowing down the time, I think we need to have you back on and live the experience of the man who's planning his first Disney World trip with Phil, and you could be the Jiminy Cricket on the shoulder, like kind of telling him.
Well, I was going to say Jedi Master Padawan, but
or that. Well, I mean, that would be more on point.
I'll be the Force Ghost.
But no, I think that'd be a great experience. But like watching somebody go through the planning process, learning the frustrations or the excitement, and kind of living that experience. Because I remember planning my first trip, and it was really fun to do. So when you get to the point where you're like, okay, I want to go in the next 8 months, and you're starting to seriously say, I want to pick a date and a time. Love to have you back on and find out what your mindset is as you're trying to think of when's the best time to bring my family down there. So
sure.
We'll wait on that. That being said, everybody have a great week. Thank you. Here's our new tagline. Thanks for listening to what's going on in our Disney World, and we'll catch you next week. Have a good one, everybody.
Well.